EPF widen ICNR eligibility, 10% excess in Account 1. Government mulling allowing teachers to return to their hometowns. Hello and good evening. Thanks for joining us. You're watching News at 10 with me, Muhammad Amin Carlos. The Employees Provident Fund, EPF, expects the ICNR facility to benefit 2 million eligible members with an estimated advance amount of 14 billion ringgit to be made available. In a statement, EPF said it has widened the scope of ICNR to cover active members who lost their jobs, were given no pay leave, or have no other source of income. Well, the statement said eligible members will have access to 10% of their savings in Account 1, subject to always having a minimum balance of 100 ringgit. However, the maximum total amount allowed to be advanced is 60,000 ringgit. Eligible members can start applying from December 2020 and funds will be credited into members' bank account by the end of the month following their ICNR application. It said the first crediting will take place in January 2021 and will be made over a period of 6 months from the first date of crediting. The government will consider allowing teachers from the peninsula working in Sabah and Sarawak and vice versa to return to their hometowns as face-to-face school sessions are only expected to start early next year. Now, Senior Minister Dato Seri Ismail Sabri Yaakob said the matter would be discussed with police so that those who were single and with family could return to their hometowns.
Rentas negeri dibenarkan melibatkan jarak jauh ni, pasangan jarak jauh, PJJ. PJJ ni pun kita benarkan. Tetapi semuanya syaratnya dengan kebenaran polis. Kalau PJJ lagi mudah balik untuk berjumpa dengan isteri dan anak-anak mereka. Lagi mudah. Jadi minta kebenaran daripada polis. Yang penting berjumpa polis.
Previously, the Education Ministry has decided to postpone all face-to-face sessions for schools and institutions of higher learning across the country until January next year following the increase in COVID-19 cases. Accordingly, learning and teaching activities are only being held online. In a related matter, Dato Seri Ismail Sabri said the government may end the CMCO in some areas earlier than stipulated if it shows a drop in COVID-19 infections. The senior minister said the Health Ministry is currently conducting evaluation of COVID-19 infectivity rate in states under the CMCO.
Kementerian Kesihatan sekarang membuat penilaian negeri-negeri, seluruh negeri-negeri yang diisytiharkan sebagai kawasan PKPB. Jadi saya percaya jika tiada kes baru dari segi jangkaan keberangkalian jangkitan itu sudah tidak berlaku, kawasan sudah semakin hijau, semakin banyak hijau dan dari segi penilaian risiko sudah tidak berisiko, saya percaya mungkin kawasan-kawasan tersebut mungkin akan ditamatkan lebih awal daripada yang ditetapkan selama sebulan itu.
Currently, all states in Peninsula, except for Perlis, Pahang and Kelantan, are placed under the CMCO for 4 weeks until 6 December. Well, meanwhile, enhanced movement control order, the EMCO, will be enforced at Top Glove Corporation Berhad's workers' dormitories in Klang and its surrounding areas from midnight until 30th November. Dato Seri Ismail Sabri said the decision was made after 215 COVID-19 cases were found in the area up to yesterday.
Kepada seluruh rakyat Malaysia yang
Elaborating further, the senior minister said the EMCO would allow the Health Ministry to carry out targeted screenings on workers and residents there.
Pelaksanaan PKPD ini membabitkan kawasan asrama lelaki serta Jalan Abadi 1A Palang KU8 dan asrama pekerja wanita serta Jalan Abadi 1A dan Jalan Abadi 10A Palang KU8. Mana ini dia, termasuk jalan sekali ya. Yang melibatkan seramai 13,190 pekerja dan hampir 1,200 penduduk.
While the Top Gloves factories would remain open for now, Dato Sri Ismail Sabri said Top Glove had been asked to conduct screenings in its factory and workers' dormitories. Meanwhile, the EMCO imposed on the Kota Kinabalu Detention Centre, Kepayan Prison and Taman Mat Saleh Prison Quarters in Kampung Matambai, Kota Kinabalu, Sabah, has ended as scheduled. However, all residents in the areas are still subject to conditional MCO standard operating procedures, which are currently being imposed in Sabah. Well, 3 billion ringgit allocation for a COVID-19 vaccine will come from a special expenditure under the COVID-19 fund. Now, Science, Technology and Innovation Minister Khairi Jamaluddin Abu Bakar said the amount was an estimate cost for the vaccine under the Global Coronavirus Vaccine Access Plan known as COVAX. The minister said he had requested for the finance minister to prepare the 3 billion ringgit allocation and he will answer the necessity for it to be consolidated under the COVID-19 fund as special expenditure.
Jadi kita tak dapat nak memberi satu anggaran yang tepat pada masa ini. Namun demikian saya telah minta anggaran 3 bilion itu disediakan oleh Menteri Kewangan dan Menteri Kewangan akan menjawab bahawa keperluan peruntukan 3 bilion ringgit itu akan dimasukkan dalam kumpulan wang COVID-19 satu pembelanjaan khas.
He was speaking in Dewan Raya today during question and answer time. Last week, opposition leader Dato Sri Anwar Ibrahim questioned the government on where the 3 billion ringgit would come from, as he could not find records for the source of the money under the budget. Earlier, Khairi informed lawmakers that as of 13 November, the World Health Organization confirmed there were 11 companies at the third stage of vaccine trials. Under the COVAX agreement, he said that Malaysia will get access to vaccine to cover 10% of the population with vaccine for another 60% coming from other sources. He added the total of 70% vaccine is in line with the national vaccine policy of developing herd immunity for the nation. Well, Malaysia recorded 1,103 new COVID-19 cases over the past 24 hours, with almost 50% of infections in the Klang Valley. Now, Health Director General Tan Sri Dr. Nur Hisham Abdullah said the latest figure brings the cumulative tally of cases to 48,520, and only one of the new cases is imported, involving a Malaysian who returned from Saudi Arabia. Tan Sri Dr. Nur Hisham said the Klang Valley contributed 49.3%, or 544 cases today, 385 cases of which are from the Daman Lela construction site cluster.
Daripada jumlah ini, sebanyak 484 kes, iaitu 89% adalah daripada kluster-kluster sedia ada. Kluster yang melaporkan kes yang tertinggi adalah kluster kluster tapak bena Daman Lela di wilayah Persekutuan Kuala Lumpur, iaitu sebanyak 385 kes. Negeri Sabah pula mencatatkan sebanyak 288 kes, iaitu bersamaan dengan 26.1% daripada jumlah kes positif pada hari ini.
Speaking at the COVID-19 update today, he said 821 recoveries were reported as of noon today, bringing the tally to 35,606. Tan Sri Dr. Nur Hisham said 102 patients are being treated in intensive care units, with 39 of them requiring ventilator support. 4 new deaths were reported in Sabah, involving 3 Malaysians and 1 non-citizen, taking the tally to 313. Well, meanwhile, Tan Sri Dr. Nur Hisham said only one new cluster was detected today. It is in 2 districts in Sabah known as Matambai cluster, involving Kota Kinabalu and Penampang. The index case was detected positive on 22nd October through symptomatic screening and had been admitted to COVID-19 low-risk quarantine center in Matambai.
Saringan kontak rapat telah mengesan sebanyak 23 lagi kes positif. Kesemua kes dimasukkan ke pusat kuarantin dan rawatan COVID-19 berisiko rendah di penjara wanita Kepayang serta Hospital Queen Elizabeth.
The Health DG also announced the Jeram cluster in Kubang Pasu District, Kedah, has ended today. Student charged with murder of Siti Nur Surya. Well, a COVID-19 patient who cut his pink wristband and fled from the Pulau Pinang hospital yesterday will be hauled up by the police after he completes his treatment. Timur Laut District Police Chief Assistant Commissioner Sofian Sanchong said police will wait until the man recovers before they question him. Well, he said the man was handed over to the Pulau Pinang hospital as soon as he was arrested last night and met today. Sofian added that the man will be investigated for fleeing while receiving treatment. Now, 2 investigation papers will be opened under Section 269 of the Penal Code and Section 22 subsection B of the Prevention and Control of Infectious Diseases Act 1988. It was reported that the 23-year-old COVID-19 patient who cut his pink wristband and fled from the hospital yesterday afternoon was found several hours later. Now, the man was found at a row of shop houses in Bayan Lepas at about 9 p.m. He was then escorted by several health workers in full personal protective gear back to the hospital in an ambulance. It is learned that the man had walked a distance of 25 kilometers from the hospital to Bayan Lepas. And a Form 6 student was charged in the Marang Magistrates Court today for the murder of a friend, Siti Nur Surya last 1st November. However, no plea was recorded from Siti Nur Athira Azmi, 19, after the charge was read out before Magistrate Engku Nurul Ain Engku Muda. Well, Siti Nur Athira, who was clad in the purple police lockup uniform, looked calm when she arrived at the court at 9:36 a.m. and waved to family members who had been waiting for her in the court compound as they waved and called out her name. Well, according to the charge made under Section 302 of the Penal Code, Siti Nur Athira was alleged to have murdered Siti Nur Suraya, 19, between 8:30 a.m. and 9:30 a.m. on 1st November 2020 in a house in Kampung Lubok Batu, Jalan Bukit Tadong, Telemong in Hulu Terengganu. She faces the death sentence if found guilty. Prosecution was conducted by Deputy Public Prosecutor Amir Abu Bakar Abdullah, while lawyer Mazlan Madzain from the National Legal Aid Foundation represented the accused. The court set 10th January next year for mention. Well, 6 men, including 5 siblings, with the youngest age 17, were charged in the magistrate's court in Tapa today for drug trafficking, which carries the death sentence upon conviction. Well, the charge against the 5 brothers, namely S. Suthesan, 18, S. Sidratharan, 20, S. Suhentiran, 21, S. Rathiswaran, 23, and a juvenile, as well as another person, Kiao, who is a Myanmar national in his 20s, was read out before Magistrate Muhammad Harith Muhammad Mazlan. They were jointly charged under Section 39B, subsection 1, subsection A of the Dangerous Drugs Act with trafficking in 37.2 kilograms of methamphetamine in an oil palm plantation in Mukim Cenderyang in the district of Batang Padang at about 9:15 a.m. last 4th November. While all of them, represented by lawyer Rajit Singh, were not allowed bail, and the court set 9th December for mention to await a Myanmar interpreter to read out the charge against Kiao, who does not understand the Malay language, and 18 January next year for submission of the chemist report. Well, all suraus in rest-in service or R&R areas, lay-bys and toll plazas along the highways managed by Plus Malaysia Berhad, including in Negeri Sembilan, have reopened today. Well, Plus, in a statement, said that this was in line with the decision made by the state Islamic religious departments in areas and states placed under the Conditional Movement Control Order, that is CMCO. Now, hence, all highway users who want to perform prayers at the surau are advised to adhere to the Standard Operating Procedure, or SOP, stipulated by the National Security Council and Health Ministry to ensure safety. The statement said that Plus also reminds all users to register using the My Sejahtera application or to record details manually to facilitate close contact tracing if the need arises, and to bring along their own prayer mats and telekong, which is the prayer garment, as these are not provided for the time being. He added that there are also floor markings to indicate physical distancing at the wuduk, which is ablution area, and prayer hall. Plus also gives assurance that the surau and other facilities are being sanitized regularly. Malaysia is performing well in the digital sector and moving forward to emerge as a dominant e-commerce market in the region. And Malaysia Digital Economy Corporation, or MDEC Chief Executive Officer Surina Shukri said the government had implemented various initiatives to expand the sector, and some are beginning to manifest initial successes. Well, according to a study conducted by MasterCard, Malaysia ranks top in e-wallet usage in Southeast Asia, followed by Philippines, Thailand and Singapore. Now, Serena said this data gave the impression that Malaysians were already practicing cashless transactions and one of the core elements in e-commerce. She added that the government has also shown a clear commitment to expand the e-commerce sector through the 300 million ringgit allocation proposed under Budget 2021. Well, from the proposed allocation, 150 million ringgit will be set aside for training programs, sales assistance and digital equipment for 100,000 local entrepreneurs to switch to digital services under the e-commerce campaign. While another 150 million ringgit will be allocated for the Shop Malaysia Online initiative to encourage online spending. Now, she said e-commerce campaign for micro and SMEs and Shop Malaysia Online, which was mobilized under the National Economic Recovery Plan, which is Penjana, managed to achieve online sales of 1.2 billion ringgit. Serena said for Malaysia to emerge as the leading e-commerce market in Southeast Asia, it has to compete with not only Singapore, but also other countries in the region. In our foreign segment, Australia races to contain Adelaide virus outbreak. Stay tuned. The foreign news. Now, at least 7 people were killed, with several suffering serious injuries when a fire broke out in a tenement building in Hong Kong. Well, the Hong Kong police said that at least 7 people aged 9 to 40 died after the blaze tore through an apartment in the building. Now, authorities said the other victims, which includes at least 3 men and 4 women, were said to be in a critical condition at the hospital. The firefighters and paramedics at the scene performed cardiopulmonary resuscitation on some casualties while rushing them to nearby hospitals. Preliminary investigations by the police show the unit was operating as an unlicensed restaurant at the time of the incident, and the victims were having a celebration when the fire broke out. Now, most of the casualties were Nepalis, and according to reports from South China Morning Post, an unnamed eyewitness told media that there were children in the group and a birthday celebration was being held at the time of the incident. Well, South Australia reported 14 new coronavirus cases today, a rapid spike in the state's first outbreak since April, prompting officials to impose social distancing restrictions. Now, dozens of people queued up at pop-up testing centres at the cluster prompted some other Australian states to reimpose strict quarantine measures on anybody arriving from South Australia. Now, South Australian Premier Stephen Marshall said no effort will be spared to slow and stop the spread of the Parafield cluster. And South Australia ended a months-long streak of no COVID-19 infections yesterday, reporting 3 locally acquired coronavirus cases after a worker from a quarantine hotel infected family members. Australia also said it would spend $1 billion underwriting construction of a vaccine manufacturing plant under a deal with a unit of biomedical giant CSL Limited, guaranteeing supply of flu shots and anti-venins. Well, Russia reported a record 22,778 new daily coronavirus cases today as the authorities in Moscow turned to a temporary hospital built inside an ice rink to handle the influx of COVID-19 patients. Now, the country of about 145 million people has started opening temporary clinics and repurposing hospitals in the capital and other cities to relieve the strain on its medical system. In Moscow, the Krylatsko Ice Palace, known for hosting international speed skating competitions, is now on the front line after being converted into a temporary hospital for COVID-19 patients. More than 1,300 hospital beds equipped with oxygen tanks cover the former ice rink's 400-meter speed skating track, with more than 100 doctors and nurses deployed. Chief Dr. Andrei Shkoda said the facility is equipped with all necessary equipment to treat and diagnose the illness, including a CT scanner. It is currently treating about 600 people, with between 60 to 80 new patients being admitted and released every day. With 1.948 million infections since the start of the pandemic, Russia has the fifth largest number of cases in the world, behind the United States, India, Brazil and France. Russian authorities reported 303 coronavirus-related deaths in the last 24 hours, taking the national death toll to 33,489. Coming up in sports, Belgium and England Nations League hopes as Italy eye finals. Stay with us. Well, firstly, the world's favorite game, football, and Belgium ended England's hopes of reaching the Nations League finals with a 2-0 win on Sunday. Jure Telemans and Dries Mertens scored the goals, which gave world number 1 Belgium a victory over Gareth Southgate's England. Leicester's midfielder Telemans opened the scoring after 10 minutes when his 20-yard shot took a deflection off Tyrone Mings. 14 minutes later, Declan Rice was harshly punished for a challenge of Kevin De Bruyne just outside the area, and Mertens curled the resulting free kick perfectly over the wall to give Jordan Pickford no chance. Belgium's second came from Romelu Lukaku, who had headed off the line brilliantly from Harry Kane, and while England spent much of the second half in their opponent's half, they were unable to fashion the opportunities to work their way back into contention. Defeat means England will not reach the finals after finishing third in 2019 when the inaugural showpiece was held in Portugal. In the other match, Italy brushed off the absence of several players and coach Roberto Mancini with an impressive 2-0 victory over Poland to close in on a finals place. After a cagey start to the game, Grzegorz Krychowiak bundled Andrea Belotti to the ground at a set piece to concede a penalty. Chelsea midfielder Jorginho stepped up to send goalkeeper Wojciech Szczesny the wrong way with his trademark hop. Belotti wasted a good chance to double the Italian advantage, volleying Lorenzo Insigne's dinked free kick over the crossbar. Bayern Munich star Robert Lewandowski cut a frustrated figure for Poland, only making an impact when he appeared to elbow Alessandro Bastoni and was perhaps fortunate VAR was not being used. Poland barely seemed interested in even trying to find an equalizer, not managing a single shot on target in the match. Italy finally scored the second goal they deserved with 6 minutes remaining after a lovely passing move, with Domenico Berardi firing from Insigne's pass. And from football, let's do golf. Now, Dustin Johnson finally clinched an elusive second major title with a 5-stroke victory at the Masters on Sunday as he overcame a shaky start to his final round to end a tournament record low score at Augusta National. Now, Johnson led throughout the final round, although only by 1 stroke early, and did not drop a shot in the final 13 holes on his way to a 4 under par 68 and an unprecedented 20 under par 268 total. Australian Cameron Smith and South Korean Im Sung-jae kept Johnson honest, both shooting 69 to tie for second on 15 under, but in the end, they had no answer to the champion. Johnson's score in relation to par matched the lowest in major history and smashed the old 72-hole Masters mark of 18 under 270 set by Woods in 1997 and matched by Jordan Spieth in 2015. Johnson, the first reigning world number 1 to grab the green jacket since Tiger Woods in 2002, was denied the usual champion's roars from spectators as no fans were allowed due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The victory, however, will go a long way to cementing the 36-year-old Johnson's reputation as a preeminent player of his generation. And on to motorsports. Now, fresh off winning the Turkish Grand Prix to secure a 7th Formula One championship title, Lewis Hamilton reflected on his record-equaling accomplishment. The 35-year-old, now the most successful driver in the history of the sport, matched Ferrari great Michael Schumacher's title haul, having already roared past the German in terms of race wins, poles and podiums.
Hamilton said 7 times sounded incredible and that he was extremely grateful for all the work done behind the scenes at Mercedes, right down to the factory cleaning ladies. The Mercedes driver added he felt there was still a lot of work to be done in the world to address human rights issues, and that he managed to channel some injustices into his driving, which made this title all the more special. The Brit finished with an ominous warning to his rivals, stating that he felt he was only getting better and had no plans to leave while he's yet to hit the limit.
So I think it's enjoying the moment because it will pass, and so I'm just going to try and appreciate it as much as I can. And then in the new year, then I can start to, I would say in the new year, then I'll start looking at what's next and where I can be better and what else I want to do in the world. And what I can say is I do want to stay here. I don't feel like don't think I've hit the limit yet.
The Englishman won his first world title with McLaren in 2008, with further successes in 2014, 15, 17, 18 and 2019.
Well, last but not least, Olympic chief Thomas Bach said Monday he is very confident that spectators will attend next year's Tokyo Olympics as he kicked off a Japan trip to boost momentum for the pandemic-postponed games. Well, spiraling infections and new lockdowns around the world have renewed skepticism that the massive international event will be possible if the pandemic is not under control by opening day, which is now scheduled for 23rd July 2021.
Organizers and Japanese officials have insisted that they can hold the event and are drawing up a raft of coronavirus countermeasures intended to make the Games safe, even if the pandemic is not over. The Olympic chief also pledged that the IOC would undertake great efforts to make sure as many participants and spectators as possible are vaccinated before arriving in Japan if a vaccine is available by next summer. Bach, on his first trip to Tokyo since the Games were postponed in March, is hoping to convince athletes, Japanese citizens and Olympics sponsors that the Games can be held safely next year. Polls show a majority of Japan's public believe the Games should be postponed further or cancelled altogether. Japan's government has maintained a steadfastly upbeat position on the prospects for the Games, with Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga reiterating Monday that they would go ahead and serve as proof that mankind overcame the virus.
And that concludes this evening's news at 10. And our top story, which is good news, EPF widened ICNR eligibility 10% excess in account 1. Well, do join us again at 12:30 tomorrow afternoon. I'm Mohammed Amin Carlos, and do stay tuned to Saluran Berita RTM. Good night, everybody.